Hey guys, it's me, Black Red Mini Plays, and today I'm going to be reading another Wattpad story because I think this is all I have time to do because, of course, my day had to be ruined because of some twat. So this is what I'm going to be recording. It would have been nice to do Sims or Roblox, but I guess I'll have to try and see if I can do those next week instead. Because I don't know if Roblox would have loaded on time, because I don't know what I'll be eating in a few hours, so I don't want to take too long. Anyways, this is the Christmas story that I found on Wattpad. I'll hopefully be able to read the rest of that Eminem story some other time. I've also got to change my profile picture on Origin or the EA app, whatever's available nowadays. But as for here, I've got to change my profile picture on here too to the new YouTube picture. Sadly, the intro and the trailer will still have to have the same old picture because I don't know if I ever have time to do another intro. And I'm definitely not doing the trailer again. That's always takes too long. But of course it's probably just the thumbnail that needs to be replaced for that one. So hopefully I still have a thumbnail for that, otherwise I'm probably just not going to bother because I always have other things to do. I don't know if I'll even get anywhere with my YouTube. Still need to try and get, hopefully, to a high number. Don't know if I'll be close to 3.9 by the time you see this. So I'm curious to know what I'll end the year with. Before I read the story, I just want to say one more thing. I really hope you can't hear that music in the background because someone doesn't know how copyright works. Even though he shouldn't be here, we should be able to wear. But anyway, hopefully I haven't wasted too much time because I do want to read this story. Sorry that I couldn't do much games this week because I only did one game, and that was that Gotcha movie. I was planning on doing other games, but I don't know if time's on my side. But maybe next Tuesday or whenever next week I'm able to record, I'll be able to do more. But that doesn't mean that you won't have streams. Well, you might have streams the week this is going out. But we'll see. If you do, then that will make up for my lack of different content, because I could have done something different for this last video, but here we are. Anyway, let's read. It was below freezing and I was wrapped up in warm clothes, blankets. The gentle crackle of the firewood cast flickering shadows upon the white fluffy rug. The tree stood tall and proud in the corner. Dozens of Christmas baubles and tinsel were spread evenly on the tree. Presents of red, gold and green sat proudly under the tree, waiting to be unwrapped. On Christmas Day, outside, the sound of Christmas carols could be heard from the carolers, braving the cold. Don't Save It All for Christmas Day by Celine Dion played softly in the background, but yet here I sat, staring out at the frost-covered window, wishing that I had someone to cuddle up with. Grabbing my cup of steamy hot chocolate, I take a sip. The dark liquid burnt my tongue, but made me feel warm. From my place on the lounge, I watch as the carolers continue on their merry way, a path of joy and Christmas spirit left behind them. Turning my attention from the window, I look around the room, which was lit up by dozens of Christmas lights spread through the living room. You can never have too many Christmas lights. Getting up, I make my way over to the stereo system in the corner and turn up the Christmas carols a bit. Taking my cup of hot chocolate, I make my way over to the kitchen. Christmas lights and candles lit the room. Tinsel hung from the benches, and the curtains covered in mistletoe hung proudly on the windows. One of the benches held thousands of Christmas-themed cookies and biscuits. Old mason jars held red, white striped candy canes. Tinsel was spread evenly everywhere. A piece of paper rested gently on the new table. This was my Christmas to-do list. Tomorrow is a new day. Tomorrow I'll decorate the front yard. The bells above the chimes as a new customer enters the old bookstore that I inherited from my father. A guy in an expensive-looking suit walks up, holding a briefcase. I put the book in my hands on the shelf and go see what I can help with. May I help you? I question, wiping my hands on the old pair of jeans I was wearing. The guy gives me a filthy look, but doesn't say anything. He's clearly taking my appearance, the magic of Christmas Day. God Bless Us Everyone by Celine Dion played in the background. I'm looking for the owner, some rich guy says, raising an eyebrow at my filthy t-shirt. You've just been blessed with my presents. What's this about? I questions, not liking this rich guy looking down his nose at me. I've come to issue with the toughest task ever. Finding me a good book to read, Mr. Snowgrave says, looking around the old bookstore. That shouldn't be very hard. There's a lot of good books to read. I've got every book on every subject in this store. You can take a look at the new books that have just come in if you like, I say, pointing to the shelf with the new book sign on it. I've got more new books in the back. I'll go get them, I tell him. Disappearing into the back room from my place, I watch as he makes his way to the new books. I roll my eyes at him and dig out the new books. The rich man thinks that finding him a book is the toughest task ever. Making my way back to the front of the shop, I noticed that someone had fixed up the crooked Merry Christmas sign on the window. Bless their soul. Like my house, the bookstore was all lit up by lights and candles. Tinsel was spread out everywhere. It had taken me a whole week just to decorate the entire bookstore, and I still have to put the tinsel on the countertop. Setting the books in my hand on the counter, I look around. There were books stacked up everywhere. The floor had been swept for 2 years. Floor hadn't been swept for 2 years, and still everything was collecting dust. My New Year's resolution is to dust everything. Are these the new books you are referring to? He questions, pointing to the books that I put on the counter. Yes, take a look and let me know which book you like. If you'll excuse me, I have customers waiting. I tell him, making my way to the front desk. Did you hear the weather forecast this morning? They predicted that it's going to snow overnight, Rose says. Rose is one of my regular customers. She comes in every week for a new book. Is it? I question, ringing up her purchase. Yes, if you're going to decorate your front yard and you want to do it this afternoon, Rose says, handing me the correct amount of money for her purchase. I'll write that down so I don't forget, I tell her as I put her new books in a bag. Merry Christmas, Rose, I say as she makes her way to the door. After I sorted out the customers, I make my way back to Mr. No Name. Did you find anything you like? I question, looking at the book that he had set aside. I like these, he says, pointing to the book. Journey to the Centre of the Earth was the name of the book. Okay, well, come to the front desk and we'll finish your purchase, I tell him, making my way back to the front desk. One of my regular customers told me that they predicted that it's going to snow overnight, I tell him, as I put this book into the bag. Is that so? He questions. I nod my head. I hand him the bag with his purchase. Merry Christmas, I call him. He smiles at me. Merry Christmas to you too, he says, leaving the bookstore. Okay, today was eventful. If I want to get my front yard decorated, I'll have to close the bookstore early. I can't wait for the snow to come. How do I put these damn lights up? I mutter to myself. I spent an hours untangling the lights and now I had to figure out how to put them up. Last year, my brother David had to put them up, but because he's not here, I have to do them. Pushing aside the strings of lights, I focused my attention on the big reindeer lights, and I knew exactly where I wanted to put them. Dragging the reindeer lights into the centre, I decided to work around them, but the string of lights that I had pushed aside earlier played on my mind. I don't own a ladder. Standing on a wheelchair was out of the question. I wasn't about to risk my life by standing on the porch railing. I need a way to be able to put the lights up without harming myself. Noticing that large garden pot was blocking the view of the reindeer lights, so I did one thing that anyone would do. I tried to move it, but try as I might, I could not move it, no matter what I did. Need help? Someone said, making me turn around. Yep. Could you help me? I asked, as Mr. Snowgrave stepped into my front garden. Sure. Are you trying to move this garden pot? Mr. Snowgrave says, pointing to the garden pot that I was resting against. Yep, everything I tried wouldn't work. The garden pot wouldn't budge, I tell him. Maybe if we both tried pushing it at the same time, maybe it'll move, Mr. Mystery says. Bending over to help move the garden pot, Mr. Mystery and I were able to move the garden pot to the side of my house. Thank you, I say, looking around at my front garden. I still had so much to do. Everywhere I looked like I needed to have Christmas lights or some type of Christmas decoration. The lights that I had pushed aside earlier played on my mind. I still hadn't worked out how I was going to put the lights up. I wish that decorating the outside of my house was as easy as decorating the inside of my house. Do you want to put those lights up? Mr. Mystery asked, pointing to the lights that sat on the neat pile on the front porch. Yeah, but I'm afraid I didn't have a ladder, I tell him, taking a seat on the front porch. I don't own a ladder, and I'm not about to let you risk your life putting up my lights. The world needs more gentlemen like you, I tell him, putting the woolly jumper with the L on the front of it closer to me. Don't you work at old Doan's Books? He questioned me, turning to face me. Yeah, it was my grandfather who started it. Almost 60 years ago, I took over when my father got sick. I tell him, looking at the reindeer lights. Oh, so you're the owner, I take it, he said, pulling the shelves of his jumper over and sleeves of his jumper over his hands. You could say that. So what do you do? I questioned him, turning my attention to him. I'm an artiste. I'm known for my paintings. I'm also known for my Snowgrave enterprises. My father started the business almost 30 years ago, he tells me, rubbing his hands together. Standing up from my place on the porch, I began to make my way to the front door. Want to come in? I'll make some hot chocolate, I tell him. He looks up at me and contemplates whether or not to come in. Okay, he says, getting up where he sat on the porch. Opening the door, I stepped inside, the warmth hitting me in the face. Les Cloches d'Amour by Celine Dion played softly in the background. The gentle crackle of fire made it feel like home. Please make yourself comfortable while I go make hot chocolate, I tell him, closing the front door and make my way to the kitchen. Pulling out a pot and cocoa powder from the cup, I placed the pot on the stove and turned the burner on. Taking the milk from the refrigerator, I poured it into the pot until it was half full. Now I have to wait until the milk warmed up. Taking a seat at a table, I watched the milk gradually get hot. When I saw steam rising from within, I got up and pulled a tablespoon from the drawer. Opening the tin of cocoa powder, I added 2 full teaspoons of the powder to the milk. Stirring well, when it was done, I turned the burner off. Grabbing 2 mugs from the cupboard, I set them upon the sink. Taking the pot of hot chocolate off the stove, I carefully poured the hot chocolate into mugs. Picking both mugs up, I make my way back to the living room, where Mr. Mystery was looking. Mr. Mischief, up sleeve, was looking at a photo of my father. That's my father. That picture was taken 4 months before he passed away, I tell him, making him turn around. You look somewhat like him, he says, turning to face me. I have my father's eyes and nose. My mother is adamant that I have his hair too. His hair colour too, I tell him, making my way over to the fireplace, when in actual fact my hair colour was almost identical to that of my father's, I say, handing him a cup of hot chocolate. Thanks, he says, taking a sip of hot chocolate. You're welcome, I say. Taking a seat on the couch, I have a similar I have a similar house to this, though it's not as homey as yours, he says, turning the fireplace. I almost forgot. My name is William Snowgrave, but you can call me Will. And you are? He questions, looking at me, most likely wanting an answer. Louise O'Donnell, I told him, taking a sip of my hot chocolate. That's a pretty name, Will says. I throw a small smile his way. That's a very name. Thank you, I say, getting up from the couch, making my way over to the fireplace. I noticed that the wood had burnt, so I threw 3 new pieces of firewood onto the red-hot corals. How old was your father when he passed away? Will questioned, sipping his hot chocolate. He was 49, almost 50. My parents were young when they had me. I'm the eldest, I tell him, taking a sip of my hot chocolate. Really? How many siblings? Will asked, taking a seat in an armchair in front of them. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters, David, George, and Lindsay. And my sisters, they're twins, but not identical. Lunabella and Annabella, I explained, taking a seat on the armchair, matching footrest. Wow, Will says, focusing his eyes on the burning wood in the fireplace. I know my parents came from big families. What about you? I questioned, looking at Will, who was staring at the fireplace. I could see the flames flickering in the reflection of his eyes. I have 2 brothers and a sister, but I haven't spoken to them in almost 5 years, Will says, looking at me. Oh, my brothers and sisters are a handful. That a sibling rivalry, I tell him, sipping on my hot chocolate. That must suck. How are they around the holidays? Will questions. I swear he has a never-ending supply of questions. Okay, they can be rather loud, but my siblings and I love them. I have one thing over them, though. One thing they all can disagree on, I tell him, staring at the fire. What's that? I smile a little and look up at him. I've always had the best Christmas lights displays. No matter how they try, they can never outdo my lights displays, I tell him, turning my attention to the Christmas tree in the corners. Its lights flickered on and off. From the corner of my eye, I saw Will smile and take a sip from the mug, hot chocolate in his hands. I'm guessing you date too? He questions. I hadn't expected him to ask that question. Oh yeah, I do. Why? I questioned, drinking the last of my hot chocolate. Just curious, I didn't know if you had a boyfriend or not. Pretty girls like you are mostly taken or hard to find, Will says, finishing his hot chocolate. Not me. I'm single and ready to mingle, I tell him, scratching the itch on my head. I've dated a few girls before, but they all had one thing in common. They're always looking to get at the fortune that was left to me by my parents. I want a girl who loves me, not one who is trying to knock me off for everything I own, Will says, resting his head on the palm of my hand. Most girls are like that, but not me. I was raised to believe that money can buy everything. It can't buy you love, and it surely can't buy you happiness, I tell him, focusing my attention to the empty cups in my hand. That's true. I've been looking for the right girl for so long. Will tells me. I could feel his eyes on me. The conversation ends there. I turn on the TV just as White Christmas was starting. We watched in silence, but I was fighting to keep my eyes open. As far as I was closing, the battle that closed my eyelids, let me sleep, overtakes me. It's the bells of Hamlet. I've got time to read anything else. Yep. I woke with a crook in my neck. Okay, so maybe sleeping in the couch wasn't a good idea. Moving from my position, I managed to get myself up off the couch to stretch. I let out a silent gasp of surprise when I saw that I had fallen asleep on Will's shoulder. I decided to go take a shower and change my clothes silently. I made my way across the living room, trying my hardest not to wake Will just yet. But when I was finally out the living room, I turned towards the staircase and and take to the stairs, 2 at a time. When I finally stepped into my bedroom, the first thing I did was head to my wardrobe. I needed clothes to take me to the bathroom. Pulling out random clothes, I make my way to the bathroom. I turn on the water and take a super quick. After I'm home, I hurry to dry myself and get dressed. Making my way downstairs as I pass through the living room, I noticed that Will wasn't on the couch. I guess he's up. As I passed through the living room, I stepped into the kitchen. Will was making a fresh pot of coffee. "Good morning," I say, making Will turn around. "Good morning. Sleep well?" he asks, taking a seat at a table. "I did. Want some breakfast?" I questioned, making my way over to the steaming cup of coffee on the bench that Will had so kindly poured for me. "Yes, please," Will says, watching as I take a sip of my mug. "Okay. How does eggs and bacon sound?" I question, pulling a pan out from the cupboard. "Sounds great," says Will, sipping on his coffee. "I'm hosting a party on Christmas Eve." "I'm hosting a party on Christmas Eve. You should come," Will says, looking at me. "Okay," I say, looking at the mug of coffee in my hands. "If you want, you can use the bathroom upstairs while I prepare breakfast," I tell Will, placing the pan on the stove. "Okay," Will says, up from his place on the table. Leaving the kitchen, I brushed myself with breakfast. Didn't take too long before the breakfast was ready and waiting to be eaten. Will had come back from the kitchen 5 minutes before breakfast was finished cooking. Will and I ate in silence. The only sounds that could be heard was the crunch of bacon and sipping of coffee. Well, I must be off, Will says, breaking the silence. Thanks for breakfast, Will says, making his way out the kitchen. "You're welcome," I call after him, watching his retreating back disappear out of sight. A few seconds later, I heard the front door close softly. I checked the time on the clock, my eyes glowing wide as I realised I'm late opening. I yelled to myself as I placed the dishes in the dishwasher. I hurriedly pulled my coat on and gloves. On the way out the door, I managed to pick up my bag, key, beanie and scarf. After much swearing for the street lights to change colour, I made it to the bookstore. People were lined up outside, patiently waiting for me to open up, patiently waiting for a track to explode on. Stun if you want, but you asked to get rolled on. Feels like the flow's been house. You're waiting to get through, hating to do whether or not, whether the storm. "I'm so sorry I'm late," I tell Rose. "He was waiting for me to open up the store." "Where were you?" Rose questions. I look up at her. "I had a visitor and I woke up late," I tell Rose. I unlocked the door and changed the sign from closed to open. "Who?" Rose questions, stepping into the extremely cold bookstore. "That rich guy from yesterday. I believe he said his name was Will Snowgrave," I tell her. Rose's eyes nearly popped out of her head. "You had the most eligible bachelor and artist, Will Snowgrave, over your house," Rose says, pulling her coat closet to her to keep the warmth in. "Well, yeah, I was out putting up my Christmas lights yesterday and he offered to help me," I tell her, going over to the fireplace. I needed to warm up the bookstore to make it more cozier for my customers. "Then he spent the night over at your place." "Lucky," Rose says, watching my every move. We fell asleep watching TV. Nothing happened," I tell her, finally lighting the fire. "Really, any woman would be lucky to have him over, don't you think?" Rose says, crouching down beside me. "Probably, but I'm not like most women," I tell her, standing up. "That's true. I hear he's very good at making portraits," Rose says, following me back to the front desk, where a few customers waited. "Oh, really?" I question. I start to finalise the waiting customers' transactions. "Yep, he may even want to paint you," Rose says, watching as placed the customer's books in a bag. "Maybe he invited me to the Christmas party this morning," I tell Rose, turning to look at her. "Oh, he sounds like he has a bit of a soft spot for you," Rose says, digging for her phone out of her bag. "He might, but rich people like him don't fall for poor commoners like me," I tell her, putting on my coat and other things that I had to put on this morning. The phone starts to ring, scaring me, making me jump. Rose answers it while I swallow my heart. "Hello," Rose says. It sounded more like a question. Rose turns to me and holds the phone out to me. "It's for you," she says, taking a seat. "Okay," I say, taking the phone from Rose and put it up to my ear. Hello, O'Donnell Books. Louise speaking. How can I help you? I question to the person the other end. It's Will. Will says. I look at Rose, who's already looking at me. Ah, hi, I say, scratching the back of my head. I was calling to ask would you like to come to dinner at my place tonight, Will says. I look away from Rose. Okay, what time? I question, waiting patiently, waiting for an answer. Does 8 o'clock sound? Does 8 o'clock sound okay? Will questions. I look back at Rose, who is manly typing on her phone. Sounds good, I say, focus my attention to the front door. Alright, I send a car to your house to pick you up, okay? Wear something nice and formal, Will says, patiently waiting for my answer. Or not, where will stop? Alright, see you at 8. See you at 8. See you at dinner at 8. The game up. La 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 la. I say, taking a seat on the stool. See you then, bye. See you then, bye, Will says, hanging up. I placed the phone back on its charger base to turn to Rose. Rich people like him don't fall for commoners, eh? Rose says, putting her phone back in her bag. Be quiet, Rose, I say, serving a customer. Next time I'm wrong about rich people, I'll eat my words, I tell Rose, watching up as the customer leaves the shop. I'll hold you to that, Rose says, getting up from where she sat. Okay, I'm off, Rose says, picking up her things. All right, Merry Christmas, Rose, I say as I watch Rose make her way to the door. Merry Christmas, Louise, Rose called out over her shoulder, leaving the store. As I stepped through the front door, I checked the time, 5:30 p.m. That gave me an hour and a half to relax, shower, and get dressed before someone came to pick me up. Dropping my things on the hallway table, I head for the stairs, taking them two at a time. Throwing my coat on and jumper on the bed, I turned to my wardrobe to pick out something nice but formal to wear to Will's. Placing the 4's length red dress, I lay it next to on my bed. I pick out my favourite green heels from the cupboard. Heading back downstairs, I head for the living room. Flopping down on the couch, I swipe the control into my hands, flipping through the TV channels to see what was on. Deciding that there wasn't anything worthwhile watching on TV, I decided to bake cookies so that I could give some to Will tonight. Any time to read anything else? At 7:30 p.m., a knock sounded at the door. The cold air hits me as the door swung open to reveal a well-dressed man with grey hair. Mr. Snowgrave sent me to pick up one Miss Donald for dinner this evening, he says, in his very thick English accent. I bet this guy used to drive the Queen around. That would be me, I tell him, grabbing my coat and clutched that and my things in it. Locking the front door, I follow the guy with the heavy English accent to an awaiting black car. The guy opens the back door for me. What a gentleman. Stepping into the car, I did up my seat belt. The guy with the heavy English accent got in the front and began to drive. A guy whose name I didn't know stopped in front of a large black gate with the word Snowgrave written on it in red. This must be where Will lives. You can go inside. Mr. Snowgrave is waiting, the guy says as the car comes to a complete stop. Thank you, I say, getting out of the car, making my way upstairs. The front door opened by another well-dressed man. Master Snowgrave is waiting for you in the lounge. Master Snowgrave is waiting for you in the lounge, he says, holding his hand out, ready to take my coat. Okay, thank you, I say, shrugging off my coat and placing it in its neatly the guy's hand. He hung up my coat on the coat rack and takes me to where Will was waiting for me. Will stood in front of the large fireplace, staring at the flickering flames. The room was lit up by a giant Christmas tree that was decked out with thousands of baubles and lights. Wow, now that's how you decorate a Christmas tree. Will's attention turns out from the fire to me. A smile appears on his face as he looks up and down. You look nice, Will says, coming over to me. Thanks, you don't look too bad yourself, I say to him. I look away. Dinner should be ready in a few minutes, Will tells me, pulling me towards the fireplace. Okay, I say, looking at the flickering flames that were warming the room. Turning my attention towards the painting on the wall, I noticed that it's a portrait of who I'm guessing are Will's parents. Nice portrait, I say, looking at the painting. Thanks, they are my parents, says Will, turning his attention to the painting. Oh, I have the portrait of my great-grandfather. It sits on the wall in the bookstore. I've never taken it down or dusted it. I tell Will, my attention back to the fire. I noticed. Who painted it? I noticed. Who painted it? Will questions. I look up at him. I don't know. It was painted a year before I was born. I say, looking at the flickering flames once again. Oh, Will says, fiddling his red tie. I painted that. My parents were so happy that I gave it to them, Will says, raw emotion evidence in his voice. How come you don't speak with your siblings, if you don't mind me asking? I say, watching the flames flicker. It's a long story. I'll tell you over dinner, Will says, his attention to the flames. Master Snowgrave, dinner is served, someone said from behind. Will looked up at him. Thank you, Lindsay, Will says, walking past me. Come, dinner's ready, Will says, pondering the direction of what I'm assuming was the living room. Okay, I say, following Will to wherever he was taking me. From what I saw, Will's house was beautiful. We stepped into the dining room, or should I say dining hall. Family photos and paintings were scattered evenly on the walls. The long table sat dead in the corner of the room, and I was covered by the long white tablecloth. On the far end of the table I could see candle flames flickering softly. Our footsteps echoed through. Echo, echo. All around the echo, echo. But quiet when we finally made it to the end of the table. Will pulled my chair along, allowing me to sit down first. Don't know whether to end it now. I really hope you can't hear that copyright in the background, because I really don't want to be copyrighted. People should be more considerate. I don't make the rules, I just follow them. But anyways, thanks for watching this video. I'm guessing there's too much more left to read. 1, 2, oh, I've read that one, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's too many chapters left to read. I should probably end it here. Maybe another time I'll be able to read this. I can always bookmark it and read it next year if I don't get to read it before the 25th, aka Christmas for some people. But thanks for watching this video. Bye.
Nintendo!